Hey everybody, I hope you're doing well. I just wanted to hop on and talk about the full moon that's coming up this Friday, Pacific Standard Time. It's going to be 1:20 p.m. In the East Coast. That means 4:20 p.m. And that just means that that is going to be the point of time where the sun and the moon are just like perfectly aligned on the opposite sides of the planet. And so with this one, there are a couple other planets involved, and I wanted to jump in and just take a look at what all is going on in the sky for this day. So we have the sun in Leo at home in the sign that it rules. Across the way is the moon in Aquarius, but the moon is going to be conjunct retrograde Mars. It'll conjunct retrograde Mars technically like a couple hours earlier, but it's going to be passing through this conjunct with Mars, and the sun is going to be opposed to Mars for a few days, right? Because these transitions with the planets take a little bit longer than the transitions with the moon. Now, square to both the sun and the moon is going to be Uranus over here in Taurus, and he's connected to Saturn through a trine retrograde in Capricorn. Now, you'll notice there's a lot of red here, right? These oppositions and squares tend to show points of stress, right, and strain between the heavenly bodies. Now, we can turn this around, right? It's not just like, oh no, you're doomed, there's a square or an opposition there. We can flip that, right, and turn points of stress and strain into strengths when we work on them and we work through them. Oftentimes, though, if we're not consciously and mindfully working on these points of tension and strain, then that's when things start to kind of go awry. As Jung, I'm going to paraphrase because I don't remember the exact terminology of this, but Jung says at some point in his writing that the things that we remain unconscious of, we call fate. And it's only by bringing things into consciousness that we actually just start to create the lives that we want to live, that we choose to live. And so whenever we're not working with the areas of our life that astrology is speaking to, then we're probably going to have stuff pop up. And that becomes very evident in full moons and new moons. And as you can see, there are other really nice things happening between Jupiter and Neptune, Venus and Pluto. There's a lot of planets in retrograde, so all this is kind of slow and murky, and people are probably looking back a lot in time as things pop up. But it's not all doomsday here on the night sky or the daytime sky for a lot of us on Friday. But what I wanted to do is really focus in on what areas of life are being affected by this, right? Now, everyone is going to have a full moon or a new moon or any of these transits affect them differently because your signs are in different houses. If we created a natal chart for the moment of the full moon, it would look like this. And Leo would be here in the 11th house, which is actually the house that Aquarius rules. And the moon would be in the 5th house, which is actually the house that Leo rules. And so it's interesting because with this full moon, that is a sort of flipped narrative that's going to help us really sink into it. The sun in Leo is all about us as individuals, right? We have just come out of the Cancer season where we're gestating, we're birthing, there's this mother energy, and what's getting birth is really the child in Leo. And from the child in Leo, there's also the ego of all the ways that we've been conditioned by the past. And then there is the potential for the authentic self and all the ways that we can release those conditionings and open up to what we're really meant to be in this life. But with Leo, it's a very personal process, right? The eyes of the consciousness are on the individual. Whereas in Aquarius, it's a very objective process where we're looking at not only the storyline of a particular individual and the role that we play in Leo, but we're looking at how that role intersects and interconnects with the rest of the cast and the rest of the story. We're looking at a much broader picture. And so it's interesting to have the moon here in Aquarius, where the moon typically rules over a very personal aspect to ourselves, right? It rules over that internal world, that internal um, realm of intuitions and instinct and emotions. Now, the last full moon we had was in Capricorn, where we really looked at overcoming the obstacles in our inner realm, right? Being able to see that there can be emotional turbulence, there can be all these emotional, instinctual, um, realms that can feel overwhelming at some points, and to simply be able to tap into that resilience of Capricorn and still move forward. In Aquarius, the theme here is going to be how to take that view of that bird's eye view of the overall story, right? The entire plot and narrative, not only of us as a character, where Leo's like, I'm the main character, but us as a character in this larger story. Oh, hello, computer. Thank you for voting. Um, us as a character in this larger story, and then apply that to our own personal narrative, right? Because the sun is still going to be moving forward in its Leo experience, right? We still need to be able to adapt whatever it is that we're learning in this full moon into our own personal narratives. And so I think it's important to recognize that Saturn rules over both both Capricorn and Aquarius. And so this is going to be like the next phase of that energy of that we invoked with the last full moon, that we woke up from, right? Like we saw that there can be things overwhelming us. We saw that we can rise up to the challenges, and that we have to, because what we were birthing with that sun in Cancer is our authentic selves. And we need to be able to rewrite some of the scripts to challenge parts of the traditions around us, to challenge some of those messages that we received as children that just don't work for us, to challenge the systems that we find ourselves in that are too conflicting to who we are as authentic people, and to also be able to create foundation and our own set of traditions and beliefs. And what that was being used for, that relationship between Cancer and Capricorn, was to birth this new experience in Leo, where we're able to shine as our most authentic selves. And now the question, the dialogue here is, how do we shine as who we are in our own personal narrative, while recognizing that own personal narrative is one narrative out of dozens, out of hundreds, out of thousands and millions. And in particular, I think because the moon is in Aquarius, what's going to come up here a lot is going to be the question of what unique perspectives can we take from this bird's eye view and apply in our inner life, right? What in our inner life, Aquarius is the sign of inventors. It's a sign of artists. It's a sign of the people kind of standing on the sides of society and seeing new ways of being. Things that aren't just like, oh, okay, how did Capricorn deal with the tradition of food and how we come together to eat over, and maybe I want to create a new tradition around food. Aquarius is looking at like things that no one has even thought about putting into experience of these traditions, right? It's revolutionizing food and being like, why do we even need food? We could be doing this drip IV thing all day and having just all these different experiences, right? Like, let's just genetically engineer ourselves so that we can take in, I don't know, take in sunlight, and we'll just live off of that as green people. It's just seeing the world in completely new ways, right? Because what it's doing is it's filling in the pieces that are missing in our lives, and filling in the pieces that are missing in our society. And so when we look at this, and we look at this in an internal way, what we can really call forth here are little inner prophets, right? Little inner prophets and inventors and seers who are able to see, like, hey, there is something that needs to be created here in this inner world. There's a new perspective that needs to be had in this inner world, a new vision in order to help align us in our own role, right? In our most authentic role, because the most authentic role that we can play is going to have to be interconnected with the rest of the world, right? It's going to have to be interconnected with the people around us. They can't afford to simply just be um, our story, right? It's intimately and interconnected with the other stories. And so we need to be able to have that objective point of view so that we can play our own role in the best way possible. And so I think it's very interesting that both of these signs are in the other's houses, because for this full moon in particular, we are needing to flip that script of the subjective and the objective to get a better view of how we actually can be playing our role as this developing child, moving from the conditioned egoic self into the most authentic self and finding ourselves in the larger community around us with an important role to play. Now, some of the things that might come up as we're having this exploration of self and we're trying to figure out, like, what things do need to be looked at in the inner world, what things do need to be looked at in my relationship to the world around me, is going to be this retrograde Mars in Aquarius, right? Mars's energy, its passion, its vitality, its boundary setting and declaring our needs. And right now, it's retrograde. It is kind of doing what there was a person the other day described it as a backstroke through Aquarius. It's got some energy problems right now, right? And in particular with retrogrades, it's a good time to look back through our history and see where maybe that drive, that impulse of being an inventor, of being a seer, of being an artist, of gaining that outside perspective was hampered or was put down or resisted or allowed to smolder because it wasn't able to fully present itself in a full Mars, like, I'm going to just do this thing, right? And that can be an interesting part of the narrative to examine. At what points did we feel, or at what points did we experience that being this sort of Aquarian on the edge, on the outside, was not going to work for us, right? Felt too repressed by society or was put down by other people around us. And we lit that kind of that energy of Mars where we draw boundaries. We're saying, no, we're going to do this thing. We just didn't have enough of it to be able to hold the vision that we were given, to be able to hold that artistic experience that we were given, or hold that inventive idea and insight that we were given, and thus not be able to hold the vision that we were given. Where in our lives have we felt that? And where in our lives can we reclaim that now as we work with this moon and the Mars and retrograde and start to plant the seeds perhaps in the future to be able to hold closer to our boundaries and hold closer to our vision and have that energy that we need? We're first going to have to go back through that retrograde and kind of gather that vision and gather that energy behind the vision, see where it was maybe hurt or misled, and recultivate it so that when Mars goes direct, we're able to apply that energy into that vision again. And then another aspect of this is going to be Uranus, who is the modern ruler of Aquarius, that is also looking for new sparks of inspiration, new ways to recreate the world. And it's here in Taurus, the sign of physical reality. And so another question and insight into this whole process is going to be, how has our physical world, right, the state of our own personal health perhaps, or the state of our own personal environment, in the physical reality around us affected both our vision of the world, our inner vision of where our part is to play in the story and where our unique vision is in the story and our role to play, right? And all the ways that we're able to fully manifest that role that we are here to play and that authentic self. In what ways has that been challenged by our physical reality? And in what ways do we have to revolutionize our physical reality in order to step into that, right? Um, Ideas with that can be like it's Taurus, right? So part of that physical reality might be our health, right? And the ways that we have taken care of or have not taken care of our bodies, and the ways that our health has affected us and affected our faith and our belief that we can actually play our role, right? That we have this vision of playing. It could have a financial piece, right? Do we have the resources to play the role that we envision ourselves to be playing? Uranus is going to want to be flipping the scripts that we've been telling ourselves, right? Whether or not we're healthy enough, whether or not we have enough resources. It's going to want to bring a new inspiration, flip those scripts, and find some other alternative way to do what it is we need to do um, within the context of our physical reality, whether that is reimagining our health and reimagining exactly what it is that we can do in our current health state, or whether that is reimagining what it is that we can do in our particular financial state and coming up with new ideas to change our health and change our financial state so that we can play the role that we are meant to play in our own personal lives and in society. So these are different dialogues that are going to be happening in the heavens. When we're mindful of these dialogues, we can have those dialogues inside of us. When we're unmindful of those dialogues, the universe often sends crazy stuff our way to open up our eyes to these experiences. And so there can be a lot with this full moon that will challenge our experience of the objective and subjective. There can be a lot with this full moon that can challenge our physical reality and the ways that we feel secure and stable. There can be a lot in this full moon that challenges our identity and how we think of ourselves and who we think of ourselves as and how we navigate this world of community as individual people. Now, since the moon is moving from that new moon in Cancer to this full moon, and we have 5 more days of this left, now is the time to really be working on cultivating the energies that we're going to want to bring to bear with the full moon, and cultivating these energies that we're going to want to gestate to this full moon. And so what those energies are is going to be that energy of Leo, that energy of feeling of, I don't want to just say feeling confident in ourselves, but really truly knowing that we are so aligned and doing the work that is necessary to align ourselves, that we know we are in alignment, right? We know that we are playing the role that we are meant to play. It's going to be the Leo sun portion of this full moon. The Aquarius moon portion of this full moon is going to want to look at those visions, those inner visions that occur for us. So in order to make space and make room for cultivating that visionary state, we probably want to work on releasing things in our lives that get in the way of making some room for that visionary state. So for me, for instance, I know that I have to be much more careful on my consumption of social media because I work a lot on social media with this content, with the courses that I run, with clients. And that is great. But what it's doing is I also see all the other stuff that's out there, and I get really caught up in that, and it becomes really emotionally taxing in that. I need to be stepping back from that so I have room for my visionary states and room to cultivate those visionary states and to be the person that I'm being called to be by those visionary states and to put that out there. So that's something that I'll be releasing so that I actually have more room. Um, it's funny because with full moons, though, we really want to be cultivating. So I'm talking about things to release. I'm also going to have to be making space, right? Making space to cultivate these visions, to really get in there, to see what's going on in the inner world. So I, for one, will be doing a lot of journaling, a lot of interior writing, sitting down and writing up a scene, talking to the prophetess and being like, hey, what is it that you see that needs to be done here? And finding that visionary path so that my Leo self can walk the trail and know that I'm doing what it is that I need to be doing, and releasing the things that get in the way. So that is the work I'll be doing this Friday. I invite you all to set your own intentions for how you're going to allow yourself to truly shine and to align that Leo shining factor of the beauty of who you are as a person with the vision that you're here to give to society and to the world, and this role that you're here to play in society and the world. And we can check in with this through that lunar realm, through that realm of intuition and instinct, and really see what visions come up for us. So thank you and blessings on the work that you do with this full moon, and have a great week. Bye.